And all join palms. And repeat after me. I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Buddha.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Dharma.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
I take refuge in the Sangha.
Keeping the palms joined. Put the palms down. All right, good morning, everybody. Nice to see you all here today. Thanks for showing up. Yeah, it's interesting. In the last couple, classes that I've been a part of, there's been this idea coming up that seems to permeate throughout discussion a little bit, and often a way that I think many people deal with emotions, is that, I'm sure nobody here does this ever, but we often try to justify them. And we get wrapped up trying to justify your emotions. I'm sure every moment in your life that you've been angry, you had a good reason for it. It goes without saying. And so recently, somebody had mentioned, specifically around anger, that was the talk in the discussion at the Thursday night class, was working on how to transform it, but also trying to kind of spin it as if, well, anger is a good thing because then it allows compassion to exist, meaning that that's the Buddhist teachings on the second noble truth, the cause of suffering, greed, anger, ignorance. So we practice compassion to overcome anger. So the logic around this was, well, if we didn't have anger, we wouldn't have an opportunity to practice compassion. That's a bit of a stretch, actually. But looking at that for a minute, ultimately, what this practice is about is understanding that where do all emotions come from? I mean, do they just pop out of thin air? Okay, so you put your hand on your, that's funny because you put your hand on your chest, you put your hand on your finger to your head, right? So what do those two things mean? Where do your emotions come from? In both of those examples.
Inside of us.
Inside of us.
I think in your heart.
In your heart. So how do they end up inside of you and in your heart? She now pointed to her head. This is great. So how does it end up in your head? From what?
It starts.
Your
Imputed meaning.
You all said that at the same time. Stories. Right? And what did you say, Justin?
Imputed meaning.
Imputed meaning, and there was something over here.
Those emotions start there.
They start where?
In the heart.
In the heart and in the head. So there's a word I'm looking for specifically, and you're all kind of around it close enough, but yeah.
Attachments.
Attachments, yes, which all tie into, it's only an hour class, so I'll cut to it. Although I do love the guessing games, they're always fun. Our perception of a situation. So our perception of a situation, and this all happens super quick. We perceive something or someone or situation, whatever it is, and then that perception immediately becomes kind of somewhere in our head, in our heart, and then these emotions arise. The emotions, they're not just like floating through thin air and all of a sudden like end up in you, right? They come from somewhere. They don't come from the head and the heart. They are put there based on our perceptions of a situation. So what I was trying to explain to somebody recently is that what we often do as a kind of practice is we'll look at a situation, and very often people say, well, this is happening for this reason, and I'm going to try to spin it. So we look at a situation that is unpleasant in our lives. We have a perception of that situation. We focus on the unpleasant part, and therefore we feel dukkha, discomfort, suffering. So often people will say, as a kind of a step in a direction, is, well, I'm going to look at a situation, I'm going to perceive it, and instead of looking at the negative side of things, the painful side of things, I'm going to kind of spin it, find gratitude in it, and perceive it in a positive way. That sounds nice, right?
Yeah.
But what's the problem there? You're still spinning some story. The practice is about seeing a situation and not spinning it into something you like or dislike, just to satisfy your emotional state. This stuff is not easy to do. I'm not expecting one little 3-minute discourse on this and all of a sudden you're like, cool, got it, done. But to me, this is the heart of what the Buddha was teaching, is to observe things as they occur without any story to it. So it's not about feeling all devastated and destroyed and crushed as if your life is over because of a certain situation. And it's not about seeing that and feeling that and then trying to find the good in it and spinning it so you feel better about yourself and the world around you. The practice of non-attachment is to observe situations as they arise for what they actually are, which is not a story in your head. Because both stories that you're telling yourself are not true. They're just your take on reality. And in case you haven't figured it out by now, your take on reality, my take on reality, our take on reality isn't reality. It's just our perception. And this goes back to the Thich Nhat Hanh teachings of freedom from views. And as I share and wrap up this little 5-minute blah, 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 we all sit here with our views and our perceptions of everything I just said. Immediately, often trying to, I like that, I agree. Yes, he's right on. No, I disagree. This guy's an idiot. What is he talking about? Somewhere in between, those are pretty too far extremes, but maybe you can go further than that. But somewhere in between those is the reality of what's actually happening. Just your perception. So try to observe life as it occurs without being stuck in any story whatsoever. Because the stories, the practice of creating a good story still gets you stuck in the habit of needing to create stories your whole life. And we want to try to remove that from a way of being and just learning to be present with things as they arise, and see them as just life unfolding in front of us. So, all right, with that, we'll go ahead and we'll start a meditation practice. To those who are joining virtually, good morning, welcome, or good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining us. I'll guide us as we begin with the meditation practice. A few things before we start. For those who are maybe brand new or never sat with me before, nothing's going to happen to you. Okay, you're not going to float away. You're not going to have any mystical, magical experiences. The mind that races all day long is not going to shut off. Don't judge your practice, meaning don't ask yourself, is it working, is it not working, are we doing it right, are we doing it wrong? We're just going to sit and we're going to breathe. You'll hear sounds inside, sounds outside. This is life. Life is filled with chaos. And this practice is learning to get quiet and still within all of the chaos. Posture, you just want to be comfortable. If you are in a cushion, often helps slide to the front third. Pushing the stomach forward allows the back to straighten. Shoulders are relaxed. Hands can be on the knees or in the lap, whatever's comfortable. If you're on a bench or chair, however you're seated, also just trying to sit up straight if comfortable. Relaxing shoulders. I will guide us as we begin, and we'll settle into a little bit of silence. Most important with this practice, do not expect anything. We're just going to sit and breathe. And starting with the eyes closed, if comfortable, or slightly open. Mouth is open or closed. We'll start with taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. And eventually, settle into a natural rhythm of the breath. Noticing the mind as it wanders, jumping from thought to thought. Start with gently guiding the attention, focus to the stomach or chest. Breathing in, feel them rise. Breathing out, they fall. Simply continue this practice, observing sensation of breath. Expecting nothing but to sit and breathe. As the mind wanders, lost in thought, recognize it. Release that thought. Return attention, focus to the breath. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of judgment from the practice. Just sitting, breathing. Learning to be comfortable in stillness, in quiet, simply sitting, breathing. Breathing in, follow breath in. Breathing out, follow breath out. With the body still, resting, and the speech quiet, aware of all sounds. the mind, learning to settle. Know what it's like to just sit and breathe. Knowing with each breath, there's nothing else to do. Nowhere else to go. And no one else to be. Everything beautiful, exactly as it is. Sitting, breathing. Once again, taking 3 deep breaths, slowly. As you slowly open the eyes, slowly beginning to move. Most important, with the practice of meditation, is to recognize how you feel now, immediately after. Compare this to how you typically feel throughout your day. Recognize the difference, if there is one. Ask yourselves how you prefer to feel every day for the rest of your life. And realize however you feel now, if it's quiet, calm, and still, or busy mind, racing mind, whatever you're sitting with at this moment, it's not from anything I said. It's not from how we sit and hold the hands or cross the legs. It's not from the sounds around us or anything else for that matter. It's everything to do with your own mind and your own mind's reaction to an external condition. This is what the Buddha called pratitya samupata. It means dependent origination. This is the basis of the Buddha's awakening. The word Buddha simply means awakening. He was a human being, no different than any one of us, but began to understand why he suffered, why he got angry, sad, depressed, stressed, anxious. He began to understand the causal relationship of all phenomena. What that means, very simply, for all of us, regardless of where you come from or what you believe in and where you think you're going, your whole life is filled with things that happen. You react. More stuff happens, more reactions. That's it. This practice is learning what it's like to respond to something quietly, peacefully, still. Because for most of us, the way you responded to the last 20 minutes is quite different from how you respond to everything else that's happening throughout your day. So all we're working on is closing the gap where the way you feel now is closer to how you feel always. Just as driven, motivated, productive, successful. Whatever that means to you in your respective lives. But with a mind that's steady, clear, focused, distracted by nothing, disturbed by no one. This practice is not easy. It's not necessarily fun. It's not an escape, as often people think it is. It is direct perception into the present moment and being with that present moment as it arises. It is observing life as it unfolds, not being crushed by it as it unfolds. Meditation is free. Buddhist practice is free. It's sitting, breathing, learning to be kind to yourself and everybody else that you encounter every moment of your life. Once we stop trying to change, fix, control, manipulate everything and everyone around us, and we work on changing our mind and our reaction to the world around us, life gets simpler. But it's a practice. And every day, we have incredible opportunities to practice. And that's what we get every day. If we're fortunate enough to wake up each day, then let's practice. Because a lot of people didn't wake up today. So even though I spoke earlier about not trying to spin stories from misery into gratitude, just for our own peace of mind, I'm still a big fan of finding gratitude in the misery. So find a balance with that. I don't suggest that just because I say when we see something and it makes us feel miserable, doesn't mean I don't think we shouldn't try to find the good in a situation, to be grateful. But don't just stop there. So baby steps. So with that, I'll pause. For me, I really just always prefer to respond to questions, meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with. And for those joining virtually, again, good morning or good evening, wherever you are. There's a chat box on your screen. As you are, feel free to say hello, or if you have any thoughts or questions, you can put them there and I'll do my best to respond. So we'll just take the rest of our brief time this morning and open up to questions around meditation, Buddhist practice, anything you're sitting with.
So I was part of a cleanup this morning up in North Park.
Yeah.
And talking about reception. We were so excited that there were things to pick up. You know, like, oh, let's get this and let's go down there should be a lot of. And I found at the end of it being grateful for the people who either littered intentionally or unintentionally. I'm serious, because we had this connection of, wow, being with other people who care about the planet, and what's maybe there and all. So it's like, what a shift in perception. There was no anger about it. It was
Right.
kind of like, oh, thank you for littering. I mean, it's weird. But
Yeah.
it's sort of like coming here in that space of everyone will go and do their thing, afterwards, but have I littered? Sure, there's been times I've littered intentionally, not unintentionally, but I actually felt this sense of gratitude and thank people for having done that.
Yeah.
Intentionally or unintentionally.
Funny how that happens, right? Yeah,
That's the point is the perception.
yeah,
It's very different.
definitely. Thank you. What else?
So as normal, I'm going to ask a question in the form of 2 paragraphs. So, just getting back to what you were talking about in the beginning.
Yeah.
A lot of my meditation turns out to be, as it was today, just sitting there with this deep feeling of like anxiety, wrong, something's wrong, right? And like, I guess the question is where the line is between emotion, labeling it with a particular anger, anxiety, whatever, and just like sitting there with the physicality of it. Because what happened, like I just sat here being somewhat comfortable or relaxed with intense discomfort, and what comes up for me then is the universality of that feeling and really feeling like a compassionate or deep connection with other people.
Yeah.
So is that the same thing as justifying an emotion? Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think that it's a good question. From the meditation practice, at least from my approach, is to recognize it in that experience. I remember years ago, somebody said that after meditation, they felt like there were 1,000 knives in their head, just like chopping them up. And very often there's this, especially if you're new to this stuff, there's this idea that like meditation is supposed to give you some like euphoric, relaxing, feeling. It's not a bubble bath, And when you're sitting there in meditation and you have anxiety, you have anger, you have strong emotions, that's what's going to come up. And so the first part is to recognize that in that moment of recognizing, feeling the anxiety, the anger, the strong, whatever the emotions are, first and foremost is to recognize them and then acknowledge, what did you do with them? What did you physically do?
Right now?
Yeah.
I felt the feeling in my body, like over the storyline, and kind of sat with that energy.
What was that last part you said? You sat with the energy.
Yeah.
So
And breathe.
if you
But not with the story.
understood. My point is that you had emotions that were very strong and you did nothing but sit with them. Do you know how that one simple practice can drastically change your life?
Yeah.
Right? How good are we at having very strong emotions and immediately acting on them? How much does that ruin your life and usually the life of those around you? Just because you're angry and stressed out all of a sudden doesn't mean you need to unload on everybody else. Sit with that. So the first part is to recognize that, yes, these emotions arise. I see them for however I want to label them. Also add to see the impermanence of them, that they will change, they will disappear, they will go away, they will return, but they're constantly changing. And just to be with them. Because for me, the meditation practice isn't, as I always say, it's not the escape. Thoughts arise, emotions arise, thoughts pass, emotions pass. It's training yourself to go through the day. Because what happens when we're going through our day and all of a sudden we get overwhelmed with an emotion and it just crushes us? We freeze. We allow that emotion to destroy us. As opposed to just sitting with it, breathing with it, knowing that it'll pass, and moving through it, moving on. But anyone ever woke up in a miserable mood and they stayed that way for like 3 weeks? Or 3 years or 30 years? We're not even allowing additional emotions to arise. They're just like ocean waves. So many wonderful, little Buddhist metaphors. The waves rising and crashing. The airplanes flying overhead and flying away, right? So They're just emotions as they arise. Label them, see them for what they are, but they don't have to control you. Yeah. You know, maybe throughout your day, if all of a sudden some emotion is really strong, you know, and you're not here on a Saturday 11 or whatever time you come here, to where it's like called meditation time. When you're going through your day and all of a sudden that emotion arises and it's about to crush the next 3 hours of your day, just sit down or stop or stand or whatever. Close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths, recognize the emotion, and go back to your day. So we want to learn to bring this skill, this training, into out there. Okay. What else?
So piggybacking on that, I've been making it a point of meditating every morning before I go to work. And as a result, I believe, of that, I spend the rest of my day with like crushing anxiety. And I can't seem to shed it. And if I don't meditate, it's not there.
So you're saying the anxiety is coming because you've done a meditation practice?
Yeah.
So
That's
Go ahead.
the
Yeah.
only correlation I can make of it. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Are you saying that, so for those who didn't hear, you're starting your day before you go to work every day with a meditation. And because of that, throughout your day, you have this crushing anxiety, and the only correlation you can make is to the meditation, because when you don't meditate, you don't have the anxiety.
I'm not as sensitive to the anxiety.
Not a sense of
right?
the anxiety. So then to me, what that sounds like, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that when you sit in meditation, what is arising in the meditation is tremendous anxiety, right?
Yeah.
Okay. There are multiple reasons anxiety arises, but when we sit in meditation, what are most people doing when they're sitting in what they call meditation?
Worrying.
Thinking.
Worrying, thinking, and whatever other word.
Sure.
Meditation is not worrying. Meditation is not thinking. It's also not thinking. Welcome to the Diamond Sutra. Just Google it. Meditation is training. Not worrying, not thinking. So, what you're actually doing, not to shatter your meditation or anybody else's meditation, because 99% of the people are in this boat, is what you are calling your meditation time is your morning thinking time. Go ahead, push back. I hope so.
No, I mean, I know what that looks like,
Yeah,
and I know what bringing myself back to my breath, back to my breath, back
Yeah.
to my breath, and I know the level I can get to in terms of calmness before
Yeah.
I come out of it. So, sure, there's the thinking time, but it's a settling.
so what I'm getting at is, where's the anxiety coming from? It doesn't
Sure.
come out of thin air.
No, and it's always there, and I've struggled with it for a long time.
It's always there.
Yeah.
So what your meditation is doing is making you become aware of it, because you're stopping everything. What very often people do with anxiety or any strong emotion is they just constantly do stuff. And now meditation is like going 100 miles an hour in a car and slamming on the brakes.
Sure.
It hurts. It's like smacking your head on the dashboard. And if you have anxiety, whatever emotion is the strongest, and you're actually forcing yourself to sit and be with breath, what's going to arise is a deep, overwhelming sense of anxiety, if that's what permeates so much throughout your life.
Sure.
So the meditation isn't causing, this is my suggestion, it's not causing the anxiety, it's making you become aware of the anxiety, which to me means you got a lot of other work to do that has nothing to do with meditation around anxiety. Meditation will not fix your anxiety. Meditation will not fix anything. Meditation is not going to fix your anger, anxiety, sadness, stress, or depression. As I Always say it will make you become aware of it. The line I say usually twice a week is, if your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, meditation is not going to fix that. It's going to help you become aware of why your life is a crazy, hectic, stressed out mess, or why your life is filled with tremendous anxiety. And then you have to make changes so your life is not filled with anxiety.
Yeah.
Anxiety is around worry, panic, fear, and a complete sense of loss of control, or a fear that you won't have control. Those are the issues to really look at. And meditation is just like highlighting it, you know? So yay for meditation. Yeah.
I was gonna say, for my own personal case, meditation helps me because it helps me be present. And then what happens is, as I become mindful, I have a greater ability to concentrate. And then once I have a greater ability to concentrate, I get insight that I wouldn't normally get. So the problems, the emotions are there, but if I do it long enough, so is the insight. And once I have the insight, I can learn to deal with some of the causes of my issues.
Yeah, so if I heard you correctly, just to kind of paraphrase a little bit, is what you're saying is that your meditation practice is giving you a greater clarity on maybe the decisions or choices you're making in your life, because it's kind of calming you down. I think you said that, but it's slowing you down and allowing you to see things more clearly, less emotional, and therefore your choices are changing. Yeah.
My choices are changing, so my anxiety is going down because I now have a deeper understanding of what's causing the anxiety.
Right.
And what decisions I can make to reduce it.
Yeah, the choices are changing because you're beginning to see how the choices of how you're living your life are causing potentially so much anxiety or whatever the emotion is. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, what else?
So just kind of along that same line of thinking, from a physiological perspective, meditation does help with anxiety and stuff. I mean, it may not fix it, but it is a tool to manage it.
It ultimately, sure. I mean, there's enough studies over the last 25 years that meditation consistently over a period of time absolutely changes gray matter in the brain, fight or flight syndrome, or fight or flight reaction, the vagus nerve, all that kind of stuff. Yes, meditation scientifically is proven to help all of that stuff. But what I always, and I've been in and around that world for 20 years, what I always say to people is, it's great that the science shows what meditation does to the brain, but if meditation shows that it'll make you less angry, but my meditation practice isn't making me less angry, then it doesn't matter what the science shows, right? So I don't think we can just default to say that it will absolutely work, because it might not for everybody. If 9 out of 10 people lower their anxiety because of meditation, that's great for the 9 out of 10, but that leaves the 1. So yeah, I'm a fan of all that it does actually have a huge impact physiologically and but not for everybody. That's the challenge. Yeah.
What would you say to so when I'm in an extreme episode of anxiety, this past week, for example, I was hit with a truck of anxiety, and
You say you were hit with a truck of anxiety?
with just so much anxiety that I couldn't think clearly, see clearly. And I knew that if I just sit in meditation, calm my mind, even just for 5 minutes, I would feel better. I would be able to see things a bit more clearly. But in those moments where it's so hard because I'm almost paralyzed, and I feel like meditation is almost impossible to do. And so, what would be your advice to kind of get myself down into that meditation?
Yeah. So, and I'm just basing this off of kind of the way you asked the question, the language you used, but just to paraphrase for those who didn't hear, used as an example this past week, you were just hit with like a truckload of anxiety, super heavy, and you understand that if you're able to meditate, even just for 5 minutes, it could kind of calm you down and you can see it more clearly. But what happens when, again, I'm using roughly your words, when it's so severe or extreme that you can't bring yourself down to that place to meditate, right? So my first question is around what you're defining as meditation. If meditation means automatically that it's just going to be this peaceful, calm state, then yeah, you're right. If you're just in this overwhelming place of emotion, just because you sit and close your eyes doesn't mean you're going to get into a peaceful, calm state, right? I mean, I spent 15 years working with people, military folks, combat veterans coming back with tremendous PTSD, traumatic brain injuries, you name it. And silence is, for many people in this room, suffering from that as well. If your mind is incredibly scary and you sit quietly for 5 minutes, what are you left with? That incredibly scary mind. So yes, sitting when you're in that moment might be torture. But my suggestion is, one, to abandon this idea that meditation is going to, by definition, calm you down just because you're sitting in meditation. It doesn't always work that way, right? But I still suggest practicing it, but abandoning the expectation or idea of what you think it's supposed to be. Because if you have tremendous anxiety or tremendous anger or whatever it is, and you sit for 3 minutes, you're going into it with like, okay, this shit better work. I'm so anxious right now. I need this. This dude told me this stuff would work, and that he's full of crap. This is not helping me right now at all. Now I'm more anxious. Now I'm angry because it's not working. Now I'm angry and anxious. Now I'm frustrated. Now I just want to run away and punch something. Just because you thought meditation would calm you down. When we're anxious, when we're angry, when we're stressed, whatever that emotion is, just sit and breathe with it. See it, watch it, feel it. Become, just dance with it. Enjoy it. See it for what it is. That's my suggestion, ultimately. My suggestion is still sit, still breathe, and see it for what it truly is, which is what? A moment in time that probably 5 minutes, 5 weeks, 5 months from that moment will mean nothing, right? You know how I know that? Because there'll be plenty of other stuff for you to be anxious about, right? But in that moment, we feel like, oh no, this is crushing. This is it. This is my entire life over. There are more truckloads of stuff waiting to hit you with anxiety. So that's the reality. But I think it's seeing the impermanence, the Buddhist teachings on impermanence, which is that emotion. Just don't think it's going to fix you. That make sense? Yeah. Yeah. What else? Yeah.
I, as a musician, love the word practice with meditation. You practice your music, over and over and over. And up until this morning, meditation is just a block of time.
Yeah.
But now the meditation practice is for that curtain call of 2 seconds when you're on stage, when that person cuts you off on the freeway or something like that. That's when you're really on stage.
Yeah, it is. I often refer to it as, it's like pregame warm-up. It's like warming up, just tune in the guitar or whatever before you go on stage. It's just getting ready for out there. Because in here, most of you are pretty nice. Nobody's going to be yelling at you right here, right? Except for me. Nobody's going to be like making you angry in here. There's not too much going on in here. This is a relatively calm, quiet space. But what always fascinates me is this calm, quiet space is filled with the same people out there that are pissing you off. The ones that frustrate you and irritate you and drive you crazy all day long are the people in this room. That's why we're here. So when that happens out there, remember, oh yeah, that's the person that was at meditation Saturday morning, because they're working on their stuff also. And that helps us not be triggered as much, you know. But yeah, it's practice. What else?
Do you believe that our minds shape our worlds, or our world from a small age shape our minds?
So the question of, do I believe that our minds shape our world, or that the world shapes our mind, right? That's your question.
How we behave and how we feel.
Sure.
And how we see things.
It's a, so there's a Buddhist text called the Dhammapada, beautiful teaching, brief stanzas. It's a cool book to just kind of like, you know, pick up and read a couple stanzas here and there. It's not something you have to get super heavy into, but the little lines throughout the Dhammapada are super deep. And the very first line of the Dhammapada is, the mind is the forerunner of all evil. So evil is a rough word translated into the English language, but that's the first line. Now, there's also one of my favorite Zen expressions I share often is, to a worm in horseradish, the entire world is horseradish. Okay. Ultimately, it's a mixture of both, I believe, on a very practical level. What I mean by that is, our mind, looking at Buddhist teachings, absolutely 100% creates our reality. No doubt about it, right? I'll close with this thought, and one of two Buddhist magic tricks I know. And if you've heard this before, please do not play along. Because I only got two, and I'm not Copperfield up here. I can't mix them up that much, right? So if you've heard this for a while, do not play along. But if you have not heard the best Buddhist magic trick, actually the other one's better, but what is this? Bowl? What else? A hand? What else? I am talking about this thing though.
Makes noise.
A thing that makes noise, the sounds. What else? Any other guesses? You've heard this 1,000 times. You stay quiet there. What else?
Space.
Say again?
Contains space.
Contains space, right? What is it now? It's a hat. And if I take it off and I put Lucky Charms in it and fill it with some milk and I start eating it, what is it now? Cereal bowl. So this just went, even in your reality, your perception, it was a bowl, it was a thing that made sound, it was a hat, it became a cereal bowl. It changed multiple times for you and everybody in this room. Did this actually ever change? No. Our perception, our use of it is what changes. This is our entire reality. The ultimate message behind me bringing this, incredible Buddhist magic trick up is that I want you to see that that's your entire life. Is that every single person in this room, our perception, we all see the world differently.
Right.
Now,
Childhood?
say again?
From childhood?
From the moment we're born. I'll wrap this around to your question in a second, but I want to start with this first part. Our perception of reality. It's important to understand that Buddhist teachings are helping us understand that we have our perception of reality. But here's the thing. What's your name? Amy. Do you think, Amy, that your perception of reality is correct?
For me, I guess.
For you, I guess.
Yeah.
But what about for all the people around you?
No.
No. So does that mean your say again?
They're all going to think something differently about this same situation, like the bowl.
Correct.
Right.
So are you, Amy, are you right?
For me.
For you, your
Right.
perception. But we all have different views.
Right.
So ultimately, there is the Buddhist teachings that there is our perception of reality, which isn't ultimate truth. Then there's the ultimate truth, the true nature of reality, which cannot be put into words, cannot be defined, cannot be spoken about. It is only meant to be experienced. It is the example of eating pizza. When you take a bite of pizza, that moment that you've taken that bite and taste that pizza, that is the experience. Then you start to describe it, tell somebody else what it tastes like. It is no longer the experience of taking a bite of pizza, right? So the first thing to your question is, our perception creates our reality. Now, the reason I say it's a mixture of both is in reality, ultimately, practically, the way we respond to the reality we see also impacts us. So if I came
near and all, everything,
who we're near,
where we live,
everything,
the parents we
the
had.
parents we had. I'm only repeating you for virtual folks who might not be able to hear you. Yeah. And my master used to always talk, what you were just talking about is geographic karma. That we're all impacted karmically by the people we're around. Karma is action, body, speech, and mind. What we think, what we say, and what we do. So the fact that we're all relatively quiet in here, God knows what we're thinking, that's up to you. And your actions are all relatively still. We're all responding to that in relatively similar ways. Not mentally, but physically. So geographically, who we're around impacts us. Now, reality is, right, if I get up and I give Waika a hug, chances are he may hug me back. We don't know. Maybe he's has an aversion to hugs. Maybe he won't hug me. Maybe it triggers something. I have my idea. Now, if I go up to him and I punch him, which I wouldn't because he's a nice guy, I'm the Buddhist guy, and that would look bad, right? If I punch him, maybe then he would hug me. Maybe he would punch me back. We don't know.
It's all random.
Well, we can call it whatever we want. It's all based on our choices. The second part of your question is how our environment impacts our decisions. And it absolutely does. What happens around us, we respond to.
So it is very much both.
It is the causal relationship of all phenomena is karma. Our entire life is the law of cause and effect. Everything. Our entire life is the little picture book that you draw one little sketch each page, then you flip through it and it tells the whole story. And how we respond to the environment changes what we do, and what we do changes the environment. Does that help?
Sort of.
Great. I'll take sort of for now. All right, so we'll join palms as we close. Give me 1 second here as well. May the benefit of this practice be shared with all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to Solomon Maldonado during his time of rebirth and to their family and friends who suffer at this time. May they all be at peace and free from suffering. May we all be at peace and free from suffering. All right, so just a few quick announcements before you all head out. Thanks all for being here. My name is Jeff. I'm a Dharma bum. We opened up this temple 17 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those of us who lead, we're not monks, we're not nuns, we're not gurus, we're not masters, we're not teachers, we're just practitioners. We do our best to take our understanding of Buddhist teachings and put it into terms that hopefully make sense to those of you who show up. So just about every night we have different practices going on, different people leading from different traditions. We have quite a large recovery sangha, so anyone who has an addiction, drugs, alcohol, whatever it might be, there's typically a class going on every day for that. We do have a bunch of new stuff happening. Instead of summarizing all of it, just go to the website. But a lot of new classes going on, which are really beautiful. So feel free to check out the changes there. We also have a couple special events. August 7th coming up. Soze Sensei from Hidden Valley Zen Center, she'll be here on a Monday night at 7 o'clock. We've kind of restructured our Monday Night Zen group with a pretty steady flow of 2 or 3 who will lead it, and then some guest speakers. So Soze will be here Monday, August 7th, and then we'll have Trish Thompson in the Plum Village. She's not here. There's a poster on the wall. That's why I went like that. I was referencing that on the wall. Mine's a funny thing. She'll be here on the 14th, which will be really great. She's in the Plum Village tradition, a Deer Park or Thich Nhat Hanh tradition. Yeah, our new Sunday at 3 o'clock is a 2-hour sit, so it's tomorrow. We met up here last week. I think that'll start meeting now in the downstairs meditation hall, which is a really beautiful kind of intimate space. If you haven't seen it, so that's every Sunday, 3 to 5. It'll be an hour and a half meditation practice, so 90 minutes, and then it closes with about a 30-minute discussion on the Heart Sutra. So that's now every Sunday, 3 o'clock. So like I said, there's just a lot of new stuff going on. Afternoon meditations will start in about another week at noon. So this will be open from noon to 1 every day, just like our morning meditation is. Eric, do you want to, we have the social sangha meeting tomorrow. Do you want to?
Sure. Hi, everyone.
You can stand up that way.
Yeah, so part of the DBT Social Sangha, we have monthly meetups essentially, where we are meeting at Presidio Park at 12:30. And just kind of bring our own picnic. We don't want to run the risk of 15 people bringing magnet chips. So, you know, if you want a sandwich, bring a sandwich. And so, yeah, it's so far it's been a good opportunity to just kind of hang out with people in, you know, interested in this path. And, yeah, any questions, you can put for whomever else.
Thank you.
There's info on the Facebook site, the website, and there's a sign out there.
Yeah.
Oh, carpool here at noon.
Beautiful. And I'm sure there's lots of other stuff I'm forgetting, but that's enough for now. So Buddha Fee will be open downstairs if you need anything. If anyone wants to stick around, garden's kind of okay right now. We've had a special, wonderful time with some people taking care of it. So thank you those who are loving the garden. But if you want to stick around and help clean up anything inside, there's a list by the front door. So we can always use help. So thank you all for being here. Wish you well.